Welcome back. Today we will talk about the Submariner and the most important milestones that have made its history. Let's start. At the beginning of the 50s, there were no divers' watches, and it was the debut of the use of rotating bezels to be used underwater. The first Rolex of this new type was not the Sub, but the 37mm chronograph released in 1953. Conceptually, it was similar to the Submariner. The biggest difference was the water resistance. On the chronograph, that was just an oyster with a bezel, was just 50 meters, while the Sub was 100 meters. A real record. After all, the founder of the brand, Hans Wilsdorf, often repeated, "We want to be the first in the field, and Rolex should be seen as the only and the best." As with many other iconic classic watches, it all began with a practical matter. The history of the Rolex Submariner began with René Jeanneret, director of Rolex and amateur diver, challenged the company to create a diving watch that could also be worn daily as an elegant model. By 1953, the answer to Jeanneret's challenge was ready to be tested. The Rolex Submariner was, specially, designed for underwater exploration and diving. Only later did it become a must-have worn by explorers, athletes, directors and artists who saw in Rolex, and precisely in that Rolex, a sign of distinction as elitist, as it was practical and versatile. Although the price positioned it in the medium range, its unmistakable line quickly made it a status symbol that was hard to beat worldwide. As soon as it was developed, the Submariner was immediately successful among the pioneers of the deep ocean. The first of them to certify its performance was Dmitry Rybakov, the French engineer specialized in submarine research, who wrote in a report dated October 26, 1953, how the watch had demonstrated, in the silence of the depths of the Mediterranean Sea, particularly brilliant in the test phase, thus increasing the sense of professionalism of the company. The first Submariner was based on the oyster case, and in the first two versions, references 6204 and 6205, showed itself with a black dial and buckshot indexes, golden graphics, pencil hands and domed case back and crystal, absence of date, and presence of the characteristic bidirectional rotating bezel, also black, crossed by the sexagesimal scale in an alternation between Arabic numerals and bar indexes. The rotating bezel, the true hallmark of the Rolex Submariner, was born from the need to provide divers an accurate and safe indication of immersion times and decompression pauses to deal with during the ascent phase. Initially bidirectional, it was later made unidirectional in an anti-clockwise direction to prevent it from moving during accidental collisions during diving, thus distorting the measurements. In fact, it was mainly used to take into account the amount of oxygen in the scuba tanks and consequently the remaining time disposition. The first references were all powered by the A260 caliber. In 1953, the Submariner 6204 was born, but it gave problems due to its undersized crown. To overcome the problem, Rolex introduced the Ref 6205 with a larger 6mm crown. The same year it launched the reference 6200 Big Crown, so called due to the presence of an 8mm crown, the first to guarantee water resistance of 200 meters. Furthermore, the Mercedes hands will make their debut on this improvement, equipped with more luminescent paste and therefore better visible in depth, which remained standard until the latest models. Absent, as well as the name Submariner on the dial, which appeared at the end of 1954, were the crown protections which only appeared in 1959 from the reference 5512. Improvements and modifications will be made in the immediately following reference, the 5513, starting from 1962, which remained unchanged until 1989. The case changed to measure 40mm and the words Superlative Chronometer Officially Certified began to be inserted on the dial in the reference 6538. The latter made the model very famous internationally, thanks to the important contribution of James Bond in some films of the time. It should also be mentioned that around 1965, the legislation concerning the indication of radioactivity on the dial changed, and the writing Swiss which indicated radium and tritium was changed to Swiss T minor 25 to indicate the amount of radioactive material present. Another distinctive improvement of the Rolex models was the introduction in the 1966 reference 1680 of plexiglass glass with the cyclope lens in correspondence with the date window, which enlarged the date, making it easier to read. An interesting reference is the 5517 milsub, a watch assigned to the British Land Forces. It features an insert with notches on all minutes, radium hands and welded lugs so it could only be used on a NATO strap. Then, in 1969, the first Submariner in gold with sapphire crystal and water resistance up to 300 meters thanks to the new trip-lock crown, equipped with 3 rubber O-rings to ensure better watertightness. Between 1989 and 1990, the reference 5513 was replaced by the reference 14060, taking on, in all respects, the current appearance: sapphire crystal, protective shoulders, crown moved to 7mm from the previous 8mm, the presence, as an option, of the date, from reference 1680, as mentioned, made legible by the cyclope magnifying lens. The glossy black dial, contrasting white and luminescent graphics and indexes, and the complete wording at 6 o'clock, which shows in addition to the model the certification of superlative chronometer, and the guaranteed depth that can be reached, 1,000 feet or 300 meters. Conclude with the reference 16610, which defines, even technically, the modern submariner, with the debut of the 3135 caliber, still used today, albeit brought up to the very high current Rolex precision standards, plus or minus 2 seconds per day, COSC certificate. In 2003, Rolex decided to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the iconic Submariner with a particular version that for the first time abandons the timeless black of the bezel to propose it in emerald green, Ref 16610 LV. Rolex currently offers the latest versions, the references 114,060, without date, and 16610, with date, with a slightly updated oyster case design, animated by a perpetual movement, mechanical self-winding, caliber 3130, in the variant without date, and, as mentioned, 3135, with date. The Submariner uses 904L steel which should guarantee a hardness of 600 Vickers, while the glass 2500 Vickers. It is equipped with a flip-lock closure, a safety closure that allows the watch to be quickly worn over a diving suit, thanks to the possibility of quickly lengthening the bracelet using a detachable link inside the closure. The bezel is made of unscratchable ceramic material. In summary, the Rolex Submariner is a timeless watch that has stood the test of time. It has been worn by explorers, divers and celebrities, and remains one of Rolex's most iconic models. It doesn't matter if you wear it for an underwater adventure or for an elegant event, the Submariner is the perfect accessory for any occasion. If you're a watch enthusiast, you can't go wrong with a Rolex Submariner. Thanks for watching our video. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe and share.